Hello, everyone. It's Mr. Barden and Bean here. Got my cat. She's begging for treats, but I'm also working. So when she sees that happening, she likes to be all up in my business. So she's just going to be here existing. Um, Hopefully, she won't be in the way. Today, we're going to be talking about kind of the idea between a hardware channel strip and a plug-in channel strip, what they are, why you might want one or the other. I had some students asking about this recently. They're looking to expand some equipment they got at home, so I won't bore you with the whole discussion we had with that, but I'll condense it and talk about kind of the main points right here. So I've got a DAW session pulled up and some, recordings I just kind of pre-made here. I'm, still working out some new ways to get from the DAW into Studio One for streaming and recording. So I've kind of pre-recorded the stuff. We'll look at it in a little bit there. So I'm just going to minimize that for now and look at some hardware channel strips. So I've just got Sweetwater pulled up, and I just literally Googled Sweetwater channel strips, and here we are. I'm just gonna scroll through the page, and while I'm doing that, I'll just mention this is not a sponsored video in any means. No one's given me money to do this. No companies or anything. Although if Sweetwater, one of the ones we're talking about, saw this and wanted to work out a deal, I'm open to discussions. That being said, we're going to actually talk about what we care about today. And that is what goes into a channel strip, why it's useful, why you may want it. The first sentence I'm going to say after I'm done with this little disclaimer is that it may seem a little weird. And that is that channel strips are designed to save you money. You say that and then you're looking at, well, this one's $5,000 almost, or 4.5. How is that saving me money? And that is that they are essentially combining several hardware processes and effects into one box, which is great. Again, in a big studio setting where money is no real problem, you've got the highest quality stuff you can get. Or if I would be setting up my own studio with, again, if money was no problem, I would have several separate effects for all of this stuff. However, in the real world, most of the time, I don't have $5,000 to spend on a plug-in and another five to spend on a compressor and an equalizer and all this stuff. So I'm gonna, if I can, combine these things that would normally go in a signal pathways anyways into one unit. Right, Bean? Yeah. So the one you're actually hearing right now that this microphone is going through is this DBX 286 channel strip with de-esser. It's not the cheapest thing in the world, but it's still more on the affordable side. I have another one that you're not hearing. I tend to use it more for portable stuff because it has a little more flexibility. I'm not going to break down why. Just for my personal use cases, I tend to use it more for portable things or other things, but I also have this PreSonus Studio channel. These do a lot of similar things, but they do things a little bit differently. We'll look at each of them just real quick. So here's the one you're listening to right now. Again, it's got a preamp. It's designed to get the microphone into either the interface or whatever recorder you're using. Right there. But it's also designed to treat and color and process the sound before it even enters the interface. And that's kind of the key aspect right there. So it's got a preamp, so it's doing all the stuff. If you need phantom power, all that, great. A little bit of high pass filter. Oh, okay, it's bath time, I guess. Don't do that. This is a family video. Do that later or go somewhere else. It's got a compressor. It's got a little bit of de-esser, minimal EQ, not a ton, and then some expanders and gates and things like that, and then the whole output volume right there. So I mean that's that's what's in that. It's not a massive unit. It gets the job done. It's great. I like it. Again, not a sponsored thing. The other one I've got is the PreSonus one, which we'll just look at so I can say, here's what I personally own, because I haven't, they're effective and I don't have $8,000 to go buy a whole bunch of really, 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 really nice ones. But these are all here. You can see it's still got a preamp. This one's tube amplifier, so I like some of the color I can get with that. But it's got a compressor, a little VU meter, and then a little EQ. I think it's got a bit more options on the EQ than what the DBX one does, but the DBX one does other stuff that this one doesn't at the same time. So I'll sometimes hop back and forth. I like that I can choose what gets bypassed and what doesn't, compared to the DBX's. Here is the chain. That's the chain. It's either on or off. But again, they're both good in different ways. Some of the other ones up here may or may not have other things. So here's the this Rupert Neve. I'm sure I'm gonna tick off someone by saying that wrong. But again, it's got here's the the preamp stuff. You can control a bunch of settings with that, some EQ things in a compressor, all that stuff, and then a little VU meter there. So again, this one's a little bit bigger, but same kind of idea. It is just made to color and treat the sound with a lot of the most common effects that you would use anyways before it hits your interface. They're great for setting up all of that. Maybe your computer isn't the most powerful, although why you would have this over there, we're not going to break that down. But it's really useful for setting up all that and, touching up and getting the cleanest recording you can. That's kind of the main goal, is getting the cleanest recording before it even hits wherever it's going next. The more expensive ones tend to have either more channels to them or, generally speaking, either higher quality parts or they work in a very specific way and they're more expensive to make. It's a whole thing. We're not going to break it down, but generally speaking, the more expensive ones have more features and more tracks and tend to be higher quality, although I'm not going to commit to saying that one way or another right now. So that's, again, the idea of the hardware units. This is different from a software unit, and I'm going to hop into my DAW. You can see all the stuff I have installed on my desktop right there, but I'm going to hop into my DAW, and I use Studio One. And Bean, no. Thank you. Okay, don't need you making a bunch of noises. So I've got this recording right here. We'll just listen to it real quick. This is just, it's basically the same thing as you've got here, but I want you to compare the things. It's literally just, I recorded it utilizing that DBX one that you can't see it because the camera doesn't go that far down on my rack, but I've got it just kind of existing right here. So we'll just play this one real quick. We're going to solo this so that way it's not problematic. Test. This is the external device.
Test. This is
one,
the just plug-in processing.
I'm singing a little bit and just kind of making some noises. Hello. Something got mix recorded in there from the other channel, but we're going to live with it for right now. Sounds kind of like you've been used to hearing. It's, nice, it's clean, it works. Great. I can go in and start doing more intense processing. Good to go. There is one drawback to this, and that is if you actually accidentally have a setting that's not quite right, maybe someone, use the wrong microphone. I don't know. There's a million different reasons something could not be right. And I don't just want to say it's because you don't know what you're doing. But there could be a million reasons as to why it doesn't work out great. let's just hypothetically pick one and say that, okay, this did not turn out like a great recording. The problem is that the problem began in that channel strip is that when it hits your interface or your recorder or your whatever it's going to, the effect changes are baked in. Like they're stuck there. They will not come off because it happened in between the microphone and the, I'm just going to keep saying interface, the microphone and the interface. If it's wrong, it's wrong. Like that's what you've got. Hopefully you didn't just waste someone's studio time by recording it poorly, and then you got to go and redo it. That's not a good look. A software one can eliminate some of that. So I've got down here, I used another setup. So we'll mute this one and unmute the other one. What I used for that, the first one, it was literally the same thing. This microphone down there. For the other one, I used a different mic because I didn't want to rewire a whole bunch of stuff. But I got the closest mic I had to this one right here. That being I got a Shure Dynamic Low Z microphone. Got it right here, SM57, as opposed to the SM7B. I mean, they're definitely not the same microphone. I would never claim that, but it's kind of the closest I've got. I held it about here, talked to it. We're going to hear it right now. This is with no processing at all.
Test. This is the just plug-in processing.
It will be.
I'm recording now on the SM57 just to hear it.
Double check.
We're gonna sing a little bit with this just to compare. My mouth is still a few inches compared to the SM7B in terms of distance, but I'll end it by saying hello.
So, I just did a few things off the top of my head, some rhythmic stuff, some plosive stuff, higher, lower, real close, a little farther away. I tried to cover all the bases there. This was just the raw sound from the microphone. So that's great. As far as the computer's concerned, these are essentially identical. But let's apply a channel strip plugin. I have right here the Studio One channel strip. I use Studio One as my main DAW, but they all have some version of this. I've just set it to backing vocal 1, but you can see right now it's got a low cut, high pass filter here, compressor, EQ, output volume. Okay, so it does all the same stuff as pretty much all the standard channel strips. Again, if you want something more specific, you can either use another plugin or find a specific hardware piece that does what you want to do, kind of like I found with these two. And for the most part, you'll find something that'll meet your budget. There's more than this. There's a whole second page we didn't even look at. So again, there's more. Well, I say second page. There's only 5, but there's more to work with of a variety of price ranges. As I say, looking at one where the cheapest one was $3,000. But again, a variety of price options and all that. I'm just kind of going in circles at that point. Or you can use an effect. So I've got this one here. We're not going to listen to the whole thing. We're just going to listen to that first little bit to save time. So we'll just compare real quick.
Test. This is the just plug-in processing. Test. This is the just plug-in processing.
So
Test.
Maybe you like that, maybe you didn't. I'm not here to say this was the best thing in the world. We're just comparing and contrasting different options. If this, if I or you or anyone else was going to do something, actually professional with this, you'd want to fine tune it all, try different presets, again, adjust all your things, go from there. We'll listen to male vocal 1 while we're at it.
Test. This is the just plug-in processing. Test. This is the just plug-in process.
So partly because of the physics of the microphone. This has a lot more plosive sounds. So this one isn't doing great. Maybe we want to do a low cut.
Processing. Test, test. This is the just plug in processing. Test, test. This is the just plug in processing.
Again, you can fine tune it. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. We're just going to pretend that this is great. This is exactly what we want, and we're going to move on from there. There's another one I actually like a little bit more most of the time, but not all the time, in Studio One, and that's the FAT channel. And this model's a little bit more analog stuff. Again, I'm just glossing over exactly what it does. It's another channel strip. So if I turn that one on, turn this one off, again, you'll notice that none of these have a preamp section because it's assuming that you needed a preamp to record it anyways. There's no real reason to it, so it's going to either use the one in your interface. My interface lives here. Or, again, it's just going to, you've already recorded the file, so you can stick it anywhere. So you have here's a speech one, just to go back.
Test, test. This is the just plug in processing. Test, test. This is the just plug in processing. Test, test. This is the just plug in processing. Test, test. This is the just plug in processing. Test, test.
We'll go with that. I kind of like this visual one. You can see it's more analog modeled. All the things there, cool. This one I like because you can go in and fine tune, okay, I want this kind of modeling and that one there. And it looks visually nice. You can change the order of it, cool, all the things. And again, it's a little bit more analog sounding compared to the other one. You can fine tune what you want, what you don't want. We'll pretend this is amazing. So you may have noticed already the perks of this over the hardware, and I've kind of already touched on it just a little bit, but I'm going to explicitly say it right now in the last few minutes of the video. And that is that the software one can be changed and tweaked and added or removed after you've already recorded this stuff. And that is an amazing feature. In like the real world and what I do, at least, I sometimes will use both, the hardware and the software. But if I don't have the hardware, I know the software can do a good job. So I tend to like the effects of the hardware, but I don't want to push it too hard because that's the whole thing with analog, is if too much can be a problem. But what I'll do is I'll record it and really get it nice and cleaned up with the hardware unit, so I just don't have to worry about a lot of the plosive things and things of that nature. And then I'll add a lot more color with the software unit, and I can fine tune it and get it just how I want after the fact. So we can get a nice, great recording to start with. Excuse me, I just suddenly started talking a lot louder. We can get a nice, great recording to start with the hardware, and then go and fine tune it, take things out, put things back, tweak it, do all the fine tuning in the software. That's how I like to work. I think that's a great bonus of being able to use both. I highly recommend it. If financially or physically or for whatever you're doing, you had to pick between one of the two, I'd recommend starting with the plugins. If, again, you really had to choose and fine-tune, but you had a little more money, I'd say get, if you're buying stuff, you could either get one of the more affordable units. I'm not going to go down the Behringer rabbit hole, but those are the most affordable ones, and all that. But try one if you can afford it. Again, it's usually a single channel. If you can get multiple channel ones, great. If money is a little tight, maybe get a audio interface with really good preamps in that. They definitely make them. That's all going to be a whole other video that we're not going to talk about here, but getting a really good interface with really good preamps is great, and then you can do the plug-in channel strips. You could get these from Studio One if you don't use, or from PreSonus if you don't use Studio One. I'm sure your DAW, if you don't use this one, has its own, and it's they'll be great and go from there. But again, that's really the core of it. At least to my ears, I tend to like the sound of a lot of these hardware units, but I in no good conscience can tell everyone watching this video, yeah, just go get this $2,000 one here, this $5,000 piece of hardware. Like that's just absurd unless you are in a studio environment when money is essentially no object. If money's no object, yeah, get whatever you want. Great. I like the sound, but I don't always like that it's baked in when it reaches the computer. I like the flexibility of the software. Those are my personal opinions on the matter. At this point, I'm pretty much just repeating myself in more and more concise ways as I go, making for a much more rambly video. So we're gonna, at about 20 minutes now, pull back and pretty much just wrap it up. So I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something, and hopefully this answers some questions. Both, I mean, I was specifically answering questions of my students, but for anyone else watching this, a little helpful. Maybe it'll give you some ideas about whether or not you need a hardware or software, whether or not you need a channel strip to begin with. I mean, technically, you never really do. I mean, all of these effects exist independently, whether in the hardware or the software. So that's a whole other debate. If you want to go have that in the comments section, have at you. We're going to end it here, and I hope everyone has a great rest of the day, and I will see you all the next time that I see you. Bye.